Welcome to today's deep dive. We are so glad you're here with us. Usually when we talk about a medical diagnosis or, I don't know, an engineering problem, there's this expectation of absolute precision.
Right, like it's a math equation.
Exactly. You break your arm, the x-ray shows that jagged white line, and the doctor just points at the film and says, there it is, broken. It's binary.
Yeah, the human brain really craves that kind of certainty. We like our problems to be, visible and easily categorized.
But then you step into the world of neurodevelopment or trauma and psychological resilience, and suddenly it's like someone has taken a sledgehammer to that x-ray machine.
Oh, completely. It gets so messy.
It is murky. It's really messy. And to truly understand what the human mind is capable of surviving, we really have to look at the extremes. So I want you to picture this.
Okay.
It's 1981. You are in San Francisco. A man is sleeping on the cold, filthy tile floor of a locked public subway bathroom. Yeah. And he is holding the door shut with his foot so nobody can push their way in, while his 2-year-old toddler sleeps on a makeshift bed right next to him.
It is an incredibly jarring image.
It really is. And our mission today is to figure out how a person goes from that exact subway bathroom floor to eventually founding a multi-million-dollar brokerage firm and amassing a $60 million net worth.
Which just sounds impossible when you put it like that.
I know, right? We're diving into the raw biographical accounts of Chris Gardner, the man whose life inspired the movie The Pursuit of Happyness. But we aren't just telling a story. We're layering his life over a stack of fascinating clinical research.
Yeah, we have some really incredible sources today.
We do. We've got a master's thesis on the mental toughness of ultra-endurance cyclists, some Wharton research on emotional compartmentalization, and the actual psychological mechanics behind delayed gratification.
Because this isn't just some, feel good, pull yourself up by your bootstraps kind of narrative.
Not at all. It is a forensic investigation into the cognitive tools and the psychological architecture that actually makes massive success possible.
And to really grasp the architecture of that success,
Yeah.
we have to establish just how deep the foundation had to be poured.
Right. Where did he actually start?
Well, Chris Gardner's childhood in Milwaukee was defined by profound instability. We're talking about an absent biological father, an abusive stepfather who at one point literally threw him out of the house naked at gunpoint,
My God.
and a mother who was incarcerated twice.
And he and his sisters were bounced in and out of foster care.
Yeah, exactly. And the one stable, positive male figure he had, his Uncle Henry, died when Chris was just 9 years old.
So if we are talking about social and financial capital, he is starting in deep, deep negative territory.
He essentially had to become an adult while he was still a child.
Right.
So he eventually finds his way into the Navy, becomes a medical corpsman, and then moves to San Francisco to work as a medical research assistant. But he's making something like $8,000 a year.
Which is nothing, especially with a family.
Exactly. So he pivots to selling medical equipment to try and support his growing family. But it's this grueling, heavy lifting, purely commission-based work. He's barely scraping by mentally and financially.
And then comes the catalyst, the absolute fracture in his reality.
The red Ferrari.
Yes, he's walking in the financial district struggling just to exist, and he sees a man pulling up in a red Ferrari. The man is a stockbroker named Bob Bridges.
Right.
Gardner walks right up to him, points at the car, and asks 2 incredibly simple questions. What do you do, and how do you do it?
I love that.
Yeah.
So direct.
And Bob Bridges tells him he's a stockbroker and that he makes $80,000 a month. And that number just completely shatters Gardner's paradigm.
It completely reframes what is possible for him. But it also creates a massive logistical problem. Think about 1980s Wall Street.
Oh yeah, the ultimate boys club.
Exactly. This is an environment fiercely gatekept by Ivy League MBAs, generational wealth, and very, very specific social pedigrees.
Yeah.
How does someone with no college degree, no network, and a background of extreme poverty navigate into that space?
Well, looking at our sources, it seems like he had to become a chameleon. There's this really fascinating concept here regarding linguistic capital.
Yes, the research on code switching and social stratification.
Right.
It highlights how individuals from lower socioeconomic backgrounds literally have to adopt a secondary persona just to access institutional resources.
Can you give an example from the source?
Yeah, the study features a Johannesburg market vendor who explicitly talks about forcing himself to speak English to wealthy white customers. He's overwriting his native tongue simply because, in his words, they have the money.
Wow.
It is an aggressive, exhausting adaptation.
He's basically masking.
Highly strategic masking.
Mhm.
And Gardner had to do the equivalent of that vendor. He had to learn the cadence, the vocabulary, the handshake, the unwritten social rules of high finance.
Yeah.
He had to code switch his way into a culture that was completely alien to him, essentially playing a character every single day just to get a foot in the door.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because there is a moment in the biography that, to me, completely derails this idea of him being this perfectly polished, code-switching chameleon.
Oh, the interview.
Yes. So Gardner spends 2 months chasing down meetings. He's parking his car in illegal spots just to make these quick networking connections. And he's racking up parking tickets he can't pay.
Right.
Finally, he lands an interview for one of just 20 coveted internship spots at Dean Witter Reynolds. But a few days before the interview, he's arrested for $1,200 in unpaid parking tickets.
The timing is just catastrophic.
It's beyond catastrophic.
Yeah.
His partner leaves him, takes their son, and empties their bank account. He spends 10 days in jail.
Yeah.
And he gets out the exact day before his final chance interview, and all he has to wear are the clothes he was arrested in. We're talking a pair of jeans speckled with white paint, a members-only jacket, and sneakers.
Not exactly Wall Street attire.
Not at all. Now, most people, myself definitely included, would have realized this is a disaster. You call in sick, you fake a family emergency, you reschedule.
Sure, you try to buy time.
But Gardner walks into a Wall Street brokerage firm in paint-splattered jeans and tells the hiring manager the absolute humiliating truth. I have to push back on this being some stroke of genius. Showing up like that seems like a massive failure of planning and sheer desperation, not some calculated strategy.
Well, it was absolutely a disaster of planning and it was sheer desperation. There's no denying that. But the way he handled that disaster stripped away something that paralyzes most people.
What's that?
The ego.
Interesting. What do you mean by that?
Well, when we talk about mental toughness, one of the core psychological markers is the ability to own your reality without emotional attachment.
Okay.
By walking in there and telling the radical truth, he wasn't executing a clever strategy. He was displaying this unshakable, almost aggressive acceptance of his current state.
He couldn't hide it even if he wanted to.
Exactly. He couldn't think of a lie fantastic enough to explain the paint on his jeans, so he leaned entirely into reality. And what that inadvertently did was show the hiring manager, a man who had survived 3 brutal divorces himself. By the way, exactly how Gardner performs when all his armor is stripped away.
Wow. Okay.
He wasn't hiding. He was saying, this is the absolute bottom, and I am still standing here asking for the job.
He forced them to look at the x-ray, broken bone and all.
Yes. Perfectly said.
And incredibly, it works. He gets the internship. But here is the brutal reality of that victory, and this is where the story gets really dark.
Yeah.
The internship is unpaid for 6 entire months. And shortly after he starts, his partner drops their son off to him and essentially says, I can't do this. It's your turn.
The pressure is just mounting exponentially at this point.
So now Gardner is the sole caregiver. He's working an unpaid internship. And because he has no money, he gets evicted.
Which leads to the subway bathroom.
Right. For an entire year, he is secretly homeless. And he's hiding this from the MBAs sitting right next to him. By day, he's in a suit making 200 cold calls to CEOs. By night, he's bathing his toddler in the sink of a public restroom or racing to get in line at the Glide Memorial Church shelter so they have a safe place to sleep.
It is a staggering duality. You have a man functioning at the absolute highest level of corporate pressure while simultaneously operating at the most primal level of human survival.
Yeah.
And the question isn't just how he physically survived it, it's how his brain didn't literally fracture under that cognitive load.
And this brings us to the Wharton School research in our sources, specifically their work on risk-taking and something called incidental anxiety.
This study is so fascinating.
So if I'm understanding this Wharton study right, incidental anxiety is like, well, imagine you have a terrible, stressful day at work, your boss yells at you, you commute home, you walk in the door, and your spouse hasn't done the dishes.
Oh, I see where this is going.
And you just explode. You start a massive argument. The stress actually has nothing to do with the dishes, but you've brought the anxiety from the office and bled it all over your kitchen. Is that the basic idea?
That is a perfect example. Incidental anxiety is stress that is completely unrelated to the decision or task you are currently facing, yet it infects your judgment anyway.
Okay, got it.
The Wharton researchers wanted to see how emotional intelligence, or EQ, affects a person's ability to stop that bleed. So they set up an experiment.
What did they do?
They took a group of participants and stressed them out by telling them they had to give an impromptu filmed speech.
Oh, that sounds awful.
Right. Total nightmare. Meanwhile, a control group just had to sit quietly and write a grocery list.
So one group is panicking, the other is completely bored.
Exactly. Then they offered both groups a financial gamble, a 1 in 10 chance to win a certain amount of money. What they found is fascinating. The participants who were stressed about the speech, but who had low emotional intelligence, only took the financial risk about 16.7% of the time.
Wow, that's really low.
Right. The anxiety from the speech bled over and made them incredibly timid with their money.
But what about the stressed people with high emotional intelligence?
They took the risk 48.3% of the time
Nearly 3 times as much.
because they were able to compartmentalize.
That is wild.
Yeah, emotional intelligence isn't just about being, empathetic or good with people. In this context, it is a highly analytical skill.
Right.
Those high EQ individuals were able to pause and ask themselves, what is the origin of the anxiety I'm feeling right now? Was it the film speech? Yes. Does the film speech have any mathematical bearing on this financial gamble? No.
So they just isolate it.
Exactly. They isolate the emotion and they wall it off. And Gardner had to do this on a monumental, almost superhuman scale.
Yeah, he really did.
He had to build a psychological firewall between the terror of not knowing where his child would sleep and the charismatic confidence required to cold call a CEO.
Because it's like having a massive flooding leak in your basement, but you're upstairs hosting a dinner party. You have to mentally build a watertight door between the 2 floors. His homelessness was his incidental anxiety. If he sounded desperate on the phone, the CEO hangs up.
Yes. He couldn't let the subway bathroom bleed into the telephone receiver.
But adapting your language and isolating your anxiety is only half the battle, right? I mean, we're talking about a guy making 200 calls a day, getting rejected 199 times, while basically starving.
Relentless.
How do you actually keep dialing the phone? But really, how do you train your brain to build that watertight door when the flood is your own survival?
There's a really fascinating parallel in the sources here, jumping from Wall Street into the world of extreme endurance sports.
Yes, the master's thesis on the race across America, or RAM. Exactly. For those who don't know, RAM is a grueling 3,000-mile bicycle race across the United States.
From coast
Coast to coast on a bike. And the researchers here drew on something called the corporate athlete paradigm, which was originally developed by Lohr and Schwartz.
The core premise of the corporate athlete paradigm is that the neurochemistry and the physiological stress response of a high-performing executive or a broker making a high-stakes trade is essentially identical to the stress response of an elite athlete under physical strain.
Wait, really? Identical?
Yes. Your heart rate spikes, cortisol floods your system, your amygdala fires up. The body doesn't actually know the difference between a terrifying cold call and a steep mountain incline.
So how do the athletes survive it? Because honestly, if you are sitting on a bicycle in California and you think about the fact that you have to pedal all the way to Maryland, that 3,000-mile reality is going to crush you.
Oh, if they focus on the finish line, they break.
Yeah.
Every single time.
So what did they do?
The researchers found that the athletes who actually finish the race never look at the big picture. Instead, they break the 3,000-mile course into 52 distinct, manageable time stations.
Okay.
Their entire universe shrinks to the next time station. They aren't biking across the country, they're just biking to the next checkpoint.
And Gardner did the exact same thing.
Yeah.
He didn't wake up and say, I need to become a millionaire today. His time stations were his 200 daily calls. A time station was getting to the daycare before it closed. A time station was getting in line at the shelter.
It's all about shrinking the horizon.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. And I want to turn this directly to you, the listener, for a second. Think about a massive project looming over your life right now. Maybe it's a career change or paying off a mountain of debt or writing a book.
We all have something like that.
Right. And we're always told to keep our eye on the prize, look at the big picture to stay motivated.
Which is often terrible advice when you're in survival mode.
Exactly. The RAM source explicitly points out that when you are operating at the absolute limit of your endurance, fixating on a distant long-term goal is paralyzing. It creates this sense of immeasurable distance. You feel like you're drowning.
Because biologically, you aren't giving your brain any reward.
Right.
When you shrink your universe to a time station or a micro goal and you hit it, your brain releases a hit of dopamine.
And we love dopamine.
We do. That dopamine is the neurochemical reward that literally fuels the energy required to reach the next station. The RAM study highlights this as attaining small-scale wins.
Small-scale wins.
By hitting those intermediate goals, you are literally wiring your subconscious to believe that you have agency. You are proving to yourself hour by hour that success is possible.
And the source also mentions the concept of a learning environment and strategic risk-taking, right?
Yes, and that is crucial. The athletes who succeed don't view failure as a total defeat. They view it as data.
Okay, that makes sense.
Gardner embraced the profound discomfort of his situation by focusing intensely on the process of mastering his craft, rather than agonizing over his circumstances.
He found those small neurological victories in the rhythm of the daily grind.
Exactly. He made sure that his sense of achievement wasn't entirely deferred to the day he finally got a paycheck.
Okay, but we have to talk about the deep underlying engine driving all of this.
The motivation.
Yeah, because you can have all the intermediate goals in the world and you can compartmentalize your anxiety like an absolute master. But if you don't have a fundamental reason why you are suffering, you will eventually just stop pedaling.
The why is everything.
It is. Gardner's mother once told him, "You can only depend on yourself. The cavalry ain't coming." But his true primary driver, the thing that kept his foot pressed against that bathroom door, was a promise he made to himself as a child.
Right.
He swore that when he grew up, his children would always know who their father was. He refused to repeat the cycle of abandonment he experienced.
It's a self-transcending purpose. It's bigger than his own comfort. And this brings us to one of the most important concepts in our source material, the science of delayed gratification.
The famous marshmallow test.
Exactly, the Stanford marshmallow experiment. But the source material pushes way, way past the pop psychology version we usually hear.
Okay.
It argues that delayed gratification isn't just about gritting your teeth and having a lot of willpower. It is a complex cognitive and motivational architecture. It's like the psychological twin of compounding interest.
I really like thinking about it like programming software. If you're building an app, writing the code is tedious, frustrating, and exhausting in the present moment, right? You're giving up your weekend to stare at a screen.
Yeah, nobody wants to do that.
But you are writing lines of code so that eventually the system automates itself and runs smoothly in the future. You are sacrificing present comfort to build future infrastructure.
That's a brilliant way to frame it. Gardner deferred immediate comfort. I mean, he could have easily taken another low-level salaried sales job to get his son off the streets immediately.
He could have.
That would have been the easy code to write. But he chose the agony of an unpaid internship because he fundamentally understood compounding effort.
Wow.
He believed the future value of mastering high finance was worth the present torture of the subway bathroom.
But here is where the marshmallow study gets a really vital update, because the original idea was just put a marshmallow in front of a kid, tell them if they wait 15 minutes, they get 2 marshmallows.
Yeah, the classic setup.
And the kids who wait are deemed to have good discipline and go on to be successful. But later research added a crucial nuance about environment and trust that honestly changes everything.
It changes the entire paradigm of what we consider discipline.
Can you explain that?
Yeah, in later variations of the study, researchers introduced an element of unreliability. They would promise the child some art supplies, but then they would fail to deliver them, breaking the trust. Then they did the marshmallow test.
And the kids ate the marshmallow immediately.
Almost instantly, because the environment had proven to be untrustworthy. The research shows that for children growing up in unstable, chaotic environments, where promises are broken, where resources vanish, where adults are unreliable, taking the immediate reward is actually a highly rational, intelligent choice.
I mean, if you don't know if the researcher's actually going to come back with the second marshmallow, you'd be an idiot not to eat the first one right now.
Precisely. Present certainty becomes infinitely more valuable than a future possibility.
And this is why Gardner's story is such an anomaly of psychological architecture. Think about the environment he was raised in. It was incredibly unreliable, violent, and chaotic.
Which means his psychological programming, based on his environment, should have dictated that he grab whatever immediate cash he could find to survive.
He should have eaten the marshmallow.
He should have, but he didn't. He completely overwrote his own deeply ingrained code. While sleeping on a bathroom floor in a situation of maximum environmental unreliability, he forced himself to trust in a future he couldn't even see yet.
So what does this all mean for you? How did he do that? How do you override your own conditioning when everything around you is screaming that you are in danger?
By understanding that motivation is useless.
Wait, useless?
Yeah, our source notes that discipline beats motivation because motivation is just a feeling. It's an emotion, and emotions fluctuate. Some days you wake up motivated, some days you wake up terrified.
That is so true.
Discipline, on the other hand, is a system. Gardner didn't rely on feeling motivated to make cold calls. He automated his future-oriented choices.
You just did the work.
He woke up, he watched his son in his sink, he dropped him at daycare, he put on his one suit, and he dialed the phone 200 times. The system was the armor that insulated him from the despair of his reality.
It wasn't magic, it was architecture. And I think that brings us to the perfect synthesis of everything we've looked at today. Chris Gardner's life is almost universally framed by Hollywood as this classic rags to riches fairy tale. But Gardner himself rejects that framing completely.
He does.
He has said repeatedly that the money isn't what matters. What matters was keeping the promise to his son.
It really is a masterclass in the mechanics of human resilience.
Yeah.
He didn't just get lucky, he utilized extreme code switching to infiltrate and navigate elite spaces. He used advanced emotional intelligence to actively compartmentalize debilitating stress, building that watertight door between the trauma of homelessness and his professional performance.
Which is incredible.
And he adopted the intermediate goal-setting framework of an ultra-endurance athlete to trick his brain into pushing forward. And he anchored every single brutal action to a self-transcending purpose that overrode his environmental conditioning.
He wrote the hardest code possible, and it paid off. And as we wrap up this deep dive into these incredible sources, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final lingering thought to explore on your own. It builds directly on that delayed gratification research we were just discussing.
The role of trust in our environment.
Exactly. If an inability to delay gratification is often just a highly accurate, rational calibration to an untrustworthy environment, how much of what we call our own lack of discipline or our own laziness is actually just a hidden lack of trust?
That is a fascinating way to look at it.
Do you trust the systems you are working within? Do you trust your workplace to reward your extra effort? Do you even trust yourself to keep the promises you make to yourself?
That's a profound question to sit with. If you genuinely don't trust the outcome, why would you ever willingly endure the process?
You wouldn't. So if you want to change your discipline, if you want to tackle that massive project, maybe you don't need to read another book on willpower. Maybe you just need to do the hard work of building an environment and a system that you can actually trust. Think about that the next time you find yourself holding a heavy door shut, waiting for the morning to come. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the things around you, keep learning, and we'll catch you on the next one.